Hey y'all, welcome back to the Book Stamp. I'm Kate, and today we're hauling some books. So the last haul I did was sort of all of the books I got in quarantine, which I think I did in like October of last year. And sort of right after that, I put myself on a book buying ban for a long time. So really it was like, I think it was like August to December, I was on a book buying ban. Because I was like, I'm about to move. I don't want to buy a bunch of new books and then have to move them. Well, because of the pandemic, we didn't end up moving when I thought we were going to be. It's now March. I thought we were going to move in December. Still in the same place. Still the same glossy setup you see here. So I took myself off a book buying ban because I desperately needed to buy books. The itch was there and I needed to scratch it. So today, we're going to be hauling all of the books I've gotten since then, which please don't roast me for how many there are. So let's go ahead and get into it. So we'll start with the books like I got for Christmas / I bought myself for Christmas, because those were never part of the book buying ban. I was like, people can give me books for Christmas. That's fine. I asked everybody for books. I got one book. I got 2 books. So the first gift I got was This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amel El Motar and Max Gladstone. If you've seen my top 20 books of the year, top 10 of 2020, this was number 2. I love this book so much. So I had like a booktube wish list that has like all the books I want, and literally I think there were like 2 or 3 on it that I'd already read, and my partner picked this one, and I was like, oh, I love that book so much, it's one of my favorites. And he was like, you've read it? And I was like, He was like so disappointed. I felt kind of bad, but now I have this book. I'm so excited to reread it pretty soon. It's like the perfect sci-fi novella. It's sapphic enemies to lover, which is my new favorite trope. We're here for this. Absolutely love it. So then my partner needed to like transcribe a video for a conference he was going to. Like that's what they asked you to do. And I was like, I got you, bro. I'll do it for you. Because he did not want to do it. And I was like, I listen to myself talk all the time. It's fine. I can do it for you. The deal was that he would buy me a book if I did that for him. And so he got me Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. I'm so excited to read this. So excited. It was like on sale, so I got a big chunkster for not that much of his money, so $0 of my money. And I am so excited to read this. I've like put it off because I just like, I need to be in the right headspace to like dive into a new fantasy novel, and I just want to just like luxuriatingly read it. This should be like a bath book. I think this is going to be a bath book. Is it weird that I picked like a elaborate fantasy for that? I don't know, but that's me. Then I got Dragon Republic, which is the second book in the Poppy War series, which I have right there. And I've been dying to read this, and I finished my thesis. I actually got my master's degree, and I was like, you know what, girl? You deserve a book. You deserve this book that your library refuses to buy for some reason, even though it's extremely popular. And so I got this. I got the paperback that matches the Poppy War paperback that I have. Now I've got to wait for the Burning God to come out in paperback so they all match. I'm becoming a booktuber, it's real. But I'm very, very excited for this and absolutely love Rebecca Kwong and her work. So the Poppy War was like my gift to myself, and at the same time I also bought myself a second book because I deserve it. And that is Even As We Breathe by Annette Sanu Clapsaddle. This is a indie press book, and it's an Appalachian novel. It's I've heard a lot about it because like the book circles I'm in have been raving about this, especially the Reading Women. If you follow them, and Kendra Winchester, who's one of the Reading Women, she like runs an Appalachia Books account. I'll link all of it below. And she loved this, absolutely loved it. It's Annette's debut novel. It's a historical fiction set in like World War II in the Appalachian Mountains, and I just like, what's not to love about it? And like, I couldn't get my library to buy a copy of this either. It's not on any of like the free apps because it's like a small indie book. I would love for it to get more acclaim, so either go request it at your libraries or buy a copy yourself. Hardback, it's so pretty. Like, I love this color. Oh, just gorgeous. But I got I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness by Austin Chaney Brown. This is one of the Reese Witherspoon book club books after the George Floyd shootings. But my mom bought it a couple years ago. Yeah, it has like the advanced price for it on the back. So she must have bought this like right when it came out. Anyways, I had been telling her I was going to steal it for a while because I wanted to read it, and she finished it and just gave it to me. So props to you, Mom. Thank you. And then if you follow Naima Reads or Ray Ray Reads Reagan, they have like gotten on the Ollie's Bargain World wagon, which I have an Ollie's like right in town. And I can't go very often, or I just buy so many books that I don't need. It's got a really weird selection of books, but I picked up a few the other day because, again, I passed my thesis and I said, you know what, I'm just going to buy stuff at Ollie's. So one of the books I got was Once Upon a River by Diane Setterfield, which I just, love this cover. Like, I absolutely love it. But it's kind of one of those like adult book clubby books that I just have always like been gravitated toward. Like whenever I see it, I'm like, interesting. So I finally picked it up and am hoping to get to it fairly soon. All these stickers are really hard to get off, so I'm gonna have to like do something about that. But it was really cheap at Ollie's and I've been seeing it forever. It's a gorgeous heart. Like, even if I hate it, like, it's a beautiful book. Gorgeous. Then we have Miss Everything by Jennifer Weiner. Again, it's one of those books that was huge in 2019. Was that when it came out? Yeah, it came out in 2019. It was everywhere. And it's about sisters and like their diverging life paths. And like, just, you know, that's an emotional thing I love in a book. See The Vanishing Half by Brett Bennett. Me and my sister actually have a pretty good relationship, but I just love reading about sisters. It's just one of those things. You grow up with a sister, you're really close. We were only 2 years apart, and both of these women like take diverging life paths. Like, one becomes a hippie and one's like a stay-at-home mom, and I'm just like here for that content. So very excited to read this. We have Promise Me Dad by Joe Biden. I bought this like right before the election, right after right before inauguration was when I bought this. I really like reading political memoirs. Like, not all of them are good, but I do enjoy them. And this one is not 500 or 600 or 700 pages. Cough, cough, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. But I've also heard that this is just a really good book talking about grief and the loss of a child. And like, Joe Biden's had a rough life. And I mean, he's president, so it's not that rough. But like, emotionally for himself, like, man's had some trials. And I've just heard this is a really good book. Like, it's a political memoir. It's really more a family memoir. And so I'm just really looking forward to this. And I think it's good to like humanize people in power. And so I'm just really looking forward to reading this. It's pretty short. Kind of reminds me of Jimmy Carter's books, which I really, really enjoy reading. I love Jimmy Carter. I'm a Jimmy Carter stan. Then we have Sing Unburied Sane by Jessamine Ward. I've been meaning to read this forever. It won the National Book Award, and I've just heard absolutely fantastic things about it. It's basically set in Mississippi, and it's a family dealing with the legacy of slavery and the legacy of trauma and lynching. And I think there's like a supernatural element to it where there's a lot of like ghosts, but I don't like going into books like knowing everything about them. So that's why I never tell you anything about the books that I'm about to read. I'm not very good at it. But also I just really prefer going in blind and just letting the story like wrap me in it and just like experience it. But I've heard Jessamine Ward is such a good writer. I have her short story anthology collection, but that's not really focusing on her writing specifically, but definitely looking forward to reading this. I also want to read all of her other books, but this is one I have. And then my library right now is just sort of like, they have a free book cart. So instead of having like a library sale or anything, just to get rid of their old books right now during COVID, they're just like, they have a cart, it's outside. They're like, please come take them. And one of the books I got was The Prophecy of the Stones. Please let me know in the comments if you've read this before. I read it as a kid, and it is a book I still think about regularly, like that ending. I'm almost scared to reread it because I think it's going to like ruin it in my head of how good it was. But it was like written by a 15-year-old girl from France, and like, that's wild. Like, and this is a book that I literally, like, when I started reading again and like really using Goodreads, I was like, I can't remember what the name of that book is. But I remembered it really vividly. Then I like saw this on the library cart, and I had like that moment where like everything clicks into place and I'm like, that's the book. That's the book. So very excited to read this. Maybe just keep it on my shelf forever because I don't want to ruin it. I don't know. But it's a book I think about a lot. Like I think about it a lot. I guess the library got rid of it just because it's really old. Nobody checks it out anymore. But I'm very excited to read this, or maybe, I don't know. We'll see. But I love this. If you like YA books, like this is an OG classic. And then also they just had several copies of 21 Lessons for the 21st Century by Yuval Noah Harari, who's a very popular nonfiction writer. He wrote Sapiens, and they had like several copies of it, not even in the like library cloth or anything. This is not probably my favorite way to read nonfiction, but I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. And it's kind of like broken up into like 21 lessons, obviously. And so I think I'll just like consume it at a slow pace, sort of things I'm interested in when I'm interested in them. And we're going to vibe that way. But I have been in a nonfiction mood lately. Thank you, Noelle 7 Pages, for getting me in this mood. But I've been in a nonfiction mood, so I think I'm going to read this and a couple other things just to sort of satisfy that nonfiction-y craving. And then I was on vacation in the Smokies. We did a very safe, socially distanced, cooked all our own meals trip, brought all our own food with us. And when we were coming back, we passed one of my absolutely favorite used bookstores in Chattanooga. And I was like, I have to stop. Like, we're here. I have not bought books in so long. Like, I'll just browse. Told myself I was not gonna, was like, we'll buy a couple books. We'll buy a couple books. Y'all, I bought too many books. I bought too many. Let it be known. But I got a bunch of books for like 50 bucks. Like, I definitely got my bang for my buck. So let's get into the books I got. One of the books I got is The Lovely War by Julie Berry, which is a like World War II romance novel. There's like two couples, and then I think Aphrodite is like the main goddess character, and we have a couple other entrances of the gods. And I'm just really looking forward to reading this, and it's a chunkster by far. Definitely a chunkster, but my library like didn't have a copy of this. And then on Libby, I could only get the audiobook, and I was just like, that's gonna be a long audiobook. I think I'd rather just read it physically. It was like a couple dollars at McKay's, so I grabbed it. I also just really vibe with this cover. Like, normally I think I would hate this cover, but I kind of vibe with it. I don't know. Maybe I'll change my mind. I didn't remove all the stickers from these beforehand because it's difficult. And then I got Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, which I already own an audiobook of this, and I didn't really vibe with this book when I was reading it. I was kind of like, I don't know. Am I going to like this? I think about this book all the time, like literally probably on a weekly basis. Maybe it's because it deals with the pandemic and I'm living in a pandemic. It's a little damaged, but we're okay with that. This was also a National Book Award finalist. It's so good. The way, and like the ending of this book, the way everything clicks together at the end, it's just, oh, so good. But basically this book is following a group of people like 30 years after a pandemic wiped out 99% of the world's population. Basically they're in a traveling symphony, so they go around around one of the Great Lakes. That's not an area of US geography I'm familiar with, but they're going around a pretty small area, and it's just a tale of, you know, how do you cope with this massive thing that happened to humanity after it happens. There's like some cult stuff going on, and then we're also flashing back to right before the pandemic hit, and so you get a lot of those little snippets as well, so it sort of satisfies that how did this happen, what was going on type of thing. It's also just a really strong look at people and humanity, and it does all of those in like this many pages. It's phenomenal. If you are kind of turned off by sci-fi, this is a really accessible sci-fi. It reads more like a literary fiction novel, like a contemporary literary fiction novel, than it does science fiction pandemic lit. If you don't want to read about the pandemic, don't read about it. Like, don't read this book, but maybe after the pandemic ends, definitely pick this up. I have not read her other book, The Glass Hotel, but it's on my TBR. I got the collected poems of Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson is honestly, like, I'll say it, one of my favorite poets. Like, is that cliche? Yes. Is it, radical? No. But the poem Hope is a Thing with Feathers, I repeat that to myself regularly. Like, I think about it all the time. I think about her poems. And the fact that she wrote all of these just like by herself, they were stuffed in a desk drawer. It's just amazing. More, like, I read a bunch of them in school, and I have read a bunch of them like since I got out of like English class, like individually for different things that I've been doing. But I just want to sit down and read her poetry all together and just absorb it that way. I think it will be a very different experience for me, and I'll find some new favorites. I love Emily Dickinson so much. Has anybody watched that Emily Dickinson show on whatever weird streaming service it's on? Because if you have, please let me know if it's worth me figuring out how to watch it. Then I got The Roundhouse by Louise Erdrich, which is her National Book Award winning novel. This is sort of, when people talk about her, this is usually the one they talk about, along with her newest one, The Night Watchman. And this one is sort of on the reservation in North Carolina, so a woman is attacked, and it's supposed to be really, really good, so I'm really excited to read it. I don't know that much about it. I prefer to go into books blind. I'm basically telling you what I gleaned off a skim of the back, because I don't even want to read the back. I've heard so many good things about this book. I can't wait to read it. Then I have Hyrule Lane by Brian Jakes. I was the biggest Brian Jakes fan in middle school. Like, y'all, literally I read exclusively Redwall books. I loved them so much. It's one of my favorite like series. There's like 30 of them. The Otter books were my favorite. I also have a copy of the Tagarung, which was one of my other favorites. So between like these two are definitely my favorites of his. This is a gorgeous hardcover copy, and I could not buy it. Sue me. But basically, if you're not familiar with the Redwall books, they're essentially just anthropomorphic British countryside animals who try and defend their abbey that they live in from vermin most of the time. This one is actually different, where it's set sort of in a different location. It's primarily a group of otters. The books are pretty formulaic in that they follow a lot of, like, there's a lot of patterns in all of the books. Anagrams are a really big thing in the books. And like puzzles and figuring that out. There's always a big battle. There's like this lineage of warriors. They're so good though. Like, I loved them as a kid, and I just love delving into that world building, and I love them, and this is one of my favorites. This one probably is one of them. This and the Tagarung are like ones that sort of deviate from that pattern, and maybe that's why I like them so much and they're so like ingrained in my brain. But I've been really wanting to reread a lot of these books because I just want to reread like these comfort reads. So I'm planning to read this soon. Then I got The World Made Straight by Ron Rash, which Ron Rash is sort of one of the kings of Appalachian literature, especially like Appalachian noir, darker mystery tales. I read The Cove by him and really enjoyed it. I loved the like atmospheric content of it, and sort of the like spooky rural murder mystery just reminded me a lot of home. I don't know what that says about me, but so this is one of his other books that's pretty well acclaimed, and I've just really been wanting to read a lot more of like his works. I think this is a murder mystery as well. I don't normally go for those, but sometimes that's just like what you're craving, you know? So I definitely want to read more of his backlist as well, and so I'm starting to do that. Then we have The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker, which won the Booker Prize. And it is basically a retelling of the Iliad and the Trojan War, but really focusing on the women of that tale, specifically Briseis, who is one of my favorite characters in that whole tale. I love her. I've always thought she's done a disservice by a lot of the movies. Cough, cough, Troy. Like, I love Troy, but Briseis was not treated the best in that book. But that wasn't a book, that was a movie. But, 2002 or whatever, the world wasn't ready for the Song of Achilles. They weren't ready. So, but this book really focuses on the women, and I've heard really great things about it, and I have a Madeline Miller shaped hole in my heart that I need to fill. And we have The Brilliant Death by Amy Rose Capetta. This is one of my all-time favorite YA books. probably up there at the top. Just because it totally changed how I saw a lot of like narrative tropes and things you could do with fantasy. While I don't believe Amy Rose Capetta herself, I'm not sure if she identifies as non-binary. She does use she, her pronouns. Her partner, though, is non-binary. And they've written several books together, which I also love. But reading this book, it's about sort of a girl in the fantasy world was set in Italy, but it's not Italy. It has to deal with like a mafia boss, essentially, but in like olden times. But she has like a magical power. She is able to change things. So change things to different forms. She basically used this to like a lot of people she needed to punish, specifically men. She would just like change them into objects. And then one day she meets another person who has sort of the same ability as her, but they use it to change genders primarily. And there's like this instant connection between them because of their magic, and they end up going on like, it goes along with her to sort of help her learn how to change her gender. She changes her gender so that she can be a full representative for the family. And it's just beautiful. I have not read the sequel yet. I'm dying to read it. I need to read it so bad. But this is absolutely one of my favorite books. I really love it. They had this beautiful, oh, that's a sticky, hardcover edition with it, and I had to pick it up. I love it so much. And then I got Homegoing by Ya Jessie. Ya Jessie is my favorite author. She's written 2 books. She's my favorite author. This was her debut novel. How is this a debut novel, y'all? This is basically a multi-generational family tale. Each chapter you're following a different person in the family, starting with the 2 sisters in Ghana, one of which basically is married to the commander of the port where the slaves are shipped out, and the other one is captured into slavery at that same port. And they don't really know they're sisters, but then it basically follows their 2 families through different generations and different, traumas that happen to them and how that life is defined. And it's just such a moving, beautiful, like macro tale. And it needs to be read like over weeks. Like I could only probably read like 2 chapters at a time just so that I had time to digest and process that character. And then it's so fun in later chapters where these characters come back. That's not always the case, but when it happens, it is really nice. And there's just this really strong trend of family and familial bonds, and it's just a true masterpiece of a novel. Like this book really changed the way I looked at a lot of things in books, like structure and form and how to tell these stories, because it's just done so well. Like I want to write a copy of this book, basically. It's so good. How could you not? I absolutely love it. One of my favorite books of last year. It didn't make the ranking because I picked Transcendent Kingdom over this, but still, when I saw they had a copy of it, I had to buy it. Like, I need to own all of her books. So I literally finished filming the haul that you just saw, and then I ended up going to return some books to the library across like the town right next to mine. And while I was there, I was like browsing the shelves, and of course I found a couple more books, so I wanted to include them in the haul since I literally got them the day I filmed it. So this is just where my library gets rid of old books, and one of the books I got is a nonfiction book, The Concussion Crisis: Anatomy of a Silent Epidemic by Linda Carroll and David Rosner. I really wanted to read this because it's not specifically just focused on like NFL, like, sort of the more famous concussion books are. And I actually had a really bad concussion in 2019, and I still kind of see effects of it today. So I'm just really interested to read more about the science, and I've literally had like maybe 2 concussions in my entire life. So I definitely wanted to read this just to have a better understanding about like what was going on in my brain during that time and everything. And so I think just reading this will sort of help me, I think, just understand that a little better. Then I got In America by Susan Sontag. I have not really read any of Susan Sontag's work, but I hear it referenced all of the time, so I definitely wanted to give it a try. This is a bit of a chunkster, but we're gonna try it and see if I like it, and it's free from the library, so why not? And then the last book I got was The Tiger's Wife by Tay Orbret, I believe. And I believe this won the Women's Prize for Fiction a couple years ago, and it was a National Book Award finalist, and a lot of reading challenges have like those types of challenges. And then I also had just like been seeing this everywhere for a while, and so I wanted to pick it up and try it out. And I don't know, it's really interesting that I picked up a lot of books like this from the library, so I don't know if these books always have the staying power, but this one I definitely want to try. So I've been in, like, last year I really vibed with a lot of literary fiction, so I'm trying to read like really highly rated literary fiction. Definitely looking forward to reading this. So those are basically all of the books I've gotten in like the first quarter of 2020. It's not 2020 anymore, it's 2021. It is 2021. But definitely a lot to read, a lot I've already read. Now that I'm on BookTube, I really start to see the benefit of owning books you really love. Most of the books on my shelves are books I have not read because I tended to purge them a lot because I was moving every 6 months in college, which makes you purge your books a lot more. But now that I like have a dedicated home library, I plan on keeping my books close to me. God, I'm weird. Anyways, thanks for hanging out, y'all. See you next time.